Good morning, everyone. Thank you for logging in. We'd like to welcome Ms. Morake and Ms. Stradom and everyone who have attended. Let's wait for everyone to come and join in. Once everyone has joined, we'll start with the meeting. Thank you.
Nelukulu. Lesipila kanjalo sina motor.
Wa rentja sa.
Bona nje jwang koloi ka no wa tsewa mathata a rena ka mona re itshepile lena.
Ka go ne no ka mo bona se ya ka go tswa. No, okay.
Tsena ke nna ka mabaka ka le dinomophobia mo.
Greetings to all social service professions. Welcome to the Northern Cape webinar. My name is Mataba Mokhashwa. I would like to acknowledge all SACSSP's staff, managers, board members, head of department. Thank you for connecting. I would like to ask if everyone can hear me, or do you want me to raise my voice a little bit? And I would like to welcome Ms. Mbuzo, who is our CPRO officer at SACSSP, who will be confirming the attendance for those who have attended the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. I'd like to thank first the board members that have attended. A special welcome to the chairperson of the Professional Board for Social Work, Ms. Ida Stradom, the deputy chairperson, Ms. Winnie Murake, and also the social service professionals who put aside whatever that they are busy with in their respective workspaces and graced us in this webinar. Thank you so much for attending. Kindly request that you write your full names, your surnames, and your registration numbers together with your email address on the chat, so that after the 29th, the office can be able to send the certificate of attendance. So if you are attending as a group in one PC, all the SSPs that have attended, if you can kindly write also their names, their surnames, their registration numbers, together with their email addresses. Thank you so much, Program Director.
Thank you, Ms. Mbuzo. I would like to welcome Ms. Morage, who is the Deputy Chairperson of the 5th Board of Professional Board for Social Workers, who will be doing the purpose of the meeting, which is the regulations on fees payable by social service professions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Program Director. Good morning and a very warm welcome to our social services professionals, which is our distinguished guests, of course. All the managers in our presence, I know your schedules are very hectic. It really means a lot for you to actually set aside this time to be with us today. Stakeholders, representatives, and members of the professional board for child and youth care workers, professional board for social work, EXCO. I can also see that we have senior managers from the council. Your presence is highly acknowledged, and colleagues as well. Let me get to the main task of the day. My main task of the day is to actually share the purpose of today's webinar. The main purpose of today's webinar is to impart knowledge to social services professionals, employers, and the stakeholders, specifically on the new regulations relating to fees payable by social services professionals, which have been recently published in June 2023. Of course, we cannot only talk about the regulations. We also saw it fit that we remind you of the council or SACSSP, who we are, our structure, our mandate, the professional boards, and why it is important for you as a professional to register. One of the main purpose of today again is to also remind you that it is your responsibility to pay the annual fees, and it will be emphasized in the presentation by my colleague, Mr. Jacobs, to say the fees must be paid by 1 January. And also, he will also clarify the 31st of March, which is a financial year end for the council. Colleagues, we all know that if there are regulations, we have to comply. If you don't comply, there are consequences. Non-payment of our annual fees leads to the removal from the register. And you know, once your name has been removed from the register, you cannot practice. And this may also lead that you may be charged criminally. Of course, in any other process, there are recourses or appeal if you feel the process was unfair. So Mr. Jacobs will also elaborate on that. And this is also an opportunity. We also heard your cry to say we don't engage. So let's also take this as an opportunity to engage and also to seek clarity, to give feedback so that we can improve, but most of all, also to give us positive feedback on things that we're doing well. As the SACSSP Secretariat, the Council, the Professional Board for Social Work and Child and Youth Care Workers, we believe that it is our responsibility, and it is also the right thing to do, to keep our social services professionals and employer stakeholders updated on new or any developments with regard to regulation or any other matter that may be concerning. Colleagues, in conclusion, I'm going to quote something that I came across on the internet, which says, if you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance, which calls for you will be liable to pay the annual fee plus the restoration fee. But I know as a social service professional that we have moral values and we will do the right thing. Thank you so much, Program Director. I will pause here for clarifying the purpose of the webinar and hand over back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Morake, for the introduction. I believe the introduction was clear. We are on item number 4, where we will introduce Mr. Jacobs, who is the member of the 5th Board of Professional Board for Child and Youth Care Workers, who will be doing the presentation on the regulation on fees payable by social service professions. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Jacob, if you are available.
I don't see him in the meeting.
We have any chance for the good morning, all. We would like to humbly apologize. We're trying to get hold of Mr. Jacobs. Please bear with us. I think he may have a challenge in connecting, so we're going to call him and see how possibly we can get him on line so that we can continue with the program. Humble apologies. We'll just take a 5-minute breather. Thank you. Good morning, all. Our apologies. We're still having challenges in getting hold of Mr. Jacobs. We would like to welcome Ms. Ida Stradom to continue with our presentation this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director, and morning to everybody. A warm welcome to everybody from the Northern Cape who've joined us today. We hope there will still be more people joining. And I must say, I've got a soft spot for the Northern Cape because that's where my roots are. So it's my pleasure to take, in the meantime, continue with the presentation until I see there's Lucky now coming in, but let me start, then he can settle down. Can you just put the presentation on slideshow, please? Okay, so just some background on you can move to the next slide, on the council. The SACSSP is a statutory body established in terms of Section 2 of the Social Service Professions Act 110 of 1978. Now, I always say, this act is very old. It was even in place before I started practicing, and I'm practicing for 43 years now. So we are busy reviewing the act, so that's part of a process. The Act is then divided into the following chapters. Chapter 1 is the establishment of the SACSSP, sections 1 to 14. Chapter 2 talk to the registration of social service professionals. Chapter 3, the disciplinary powers of council. And Chapter 4, the general provisions. So this gives us an overview also of what the Act is all about and what is covered in the Act. And take time and get the Act and look at it and familiarize yourself with what is in the Act. And I can promise you the new Act will be much more relevant for today. Then in terms of the structure of the South African Council for Social Service Professions, we have the professional, we've got the council, and then we've got 2 professional boards, the Professional Board for Social Work and the Professional Board for Child and Youth Care Workers. Then there's the Executive Committee or the EXCO from Council. And then Council also have Section 10 committees. There's a Registrations Committee and there's a Committee for Preliminary Inquiries. And these 2 committees are specified in the Act. That's why they are indicated separately from Section 10 committees. And then a very crucial part of SACSSP is the administration, where we have the registrar and the rest of the staff at the office who is actually doing all the, let's say, administrative work and supporting the council and the boards to do what they are supposed to do. Then the Section 10 committees, we have a Finance Committee, Risk and Audit Committee, Human Resource Committee, Registration Committee, Transformation Committee, Communication and Public Relations Committee, IT and Business Re-Engineering Committee, and a Education, Training and Development Committee. And on these committees, there's council is represented as well as the 2 boards. So it's a representative committee dealing with those matters that they are, why they were established. Okay, then if we look at the mandate of council, the mandate of council is provided for in Section 3 of the Act, and it includes protect and promote the interest of the professions in respect of which professional boards have been or are to be established, maintain and enhance the prestige, status, integrity and dignity of the professions, advise the minister in relation to matters affecting the professions, Determine on the recommendation of the professional boards the qualifications for registration of persons practicing the professions. Regulate the practicing of the professions, the registration of social service professionals, and of persons practicing professions. Determine the standards of professional conduct, control and exercise authority with regard to all financial matters relating to the council and the professional boards. And it's important to just remember that the professional board for social work is focusing on social work and social auxiliary work. Professional board for child and youth care focus on child and youth care work. So the boards has the focus on that professions, and they will look at, for instance, the training, the professional conduct and all of that, and then submit it to council for approval. So in some way, council has an overseeing authority on the boards. And then the professional boards, okay, I've actually jumped myself. The professional boards are established in terms of Section 14A. The objects of a professional board are provided in Section 14B, and it includes the control and exercise authority in respect of training and practice of professions within its ambit, determine the minimum standards for education and training of the professions within its ambit, maintain and enhance the dignity and integrity of the professions, and then guide the professions falling within its ambit to protect the public. And I can just also mention that we are in the process of establishing a professional board for community development, but that is not yet in place. So for now, it's the two boards. Yeah, okay. Then there's a question. The question can be, why do we need professional registration? A person must register to become a social service professional because it is a legal requirement. In terms of Section 15 of the Act, it is a license to practice. We don't want anybody to just do social work or child and youth care work. We want to know that people are properly trained and they are properly qualified and they are properly licensed to practice that profession. And that's why it's so important. There are various laws which empower or recognize social service professionals to execute certain statutory tasks. For instance, the Criminal Procedure Act recognizes social workers. And like that, there's other laws that is recognizing SSPs. We must prove that we meet the requirements and are competent to practice. We must protect the public against unethical conduct. We can market ourselves. I can say I'm a social worker, I'm qualified, here's my proof of registration and my qualifications, and then people will recognize me as a social service professional, and the same with everybody else. We can use it for international recognition. It gives professionals credibility and credence to our profession, and you will be recognized and respected in multidisciplinary teams. And often there's rarely a multidisciplinary team where there's not a social service professional on board of that team. And I've heard now in the news with all this floods in the Western Cape, often Department of Social Development is coming up where they are assisting. So we are needed and we are necessary in communities, but we need to be properly licensed. Then the Section 28 of the Act provides that the Minister may, on the recommendation of the Council, make regulations relating to the fees which shall be paid annually by SSPs and the fees which shall be paid to the Council in respect of the registration of re-registration and of additional qualifications, specialities, and private practice. The restoration of a qualification, speciality, practice, and name of such a SSP on the register. Any application which shall or may be made under this Act. The issue of registration certificates or copies thereof. The provision of extracts from any register, and any other act which shall or may be performed by the council or by the registrar under this Act. And then also allowances which may be paid to members of the council and of committees and the boards in carrying out the function. So it's not just like council decide we're going to charge fees, and now we decide maybe this year we charge 100 Rand, next year we charge 1,000 Rand. No, all fees are properly regulated, and it's published in the, what we call it now, but it's properly published so that it's a proper document, and it's a legal document. It's legally bindable. Okay, next slide. I will see when I can hand over to Lucky. I think he is now in the meeting. But anyway, let me continue. There's the minimum requirements for education and training and the nature, content and duration of the curricula and practical training, which shall be a requirement for the acquisition of a prescribed qualification. We cannot just, a university cannot just decide they're going to train social workers or child and youth care workers now and decide what they will train them and give them a degree. No, there's a standardized requirements for education and training, which need to be adhered to by all training facilities for social workers, social auxiliary workers, and child and youth care workers. The institution of an inquiry in terms of Chapter 3, including the manner in which any complaint or alleged unprofessional or improper conduct by SSP shall be lodged with the council, and the manner in which any such inquiry shall be instituted and conducted. The form of any notice or summons given or served under this Act, and the registration and conduct of a private practice by a social worker, and the professional practice of a social worker conducting a private practice. And council and the boards are currently busy with the development of the regulations for private practice, because that is one of the aspects. There's some rules and guidelines in place, but there's no proper regulation. So we are busy preparing those regulations to be published hopefully soon for comments from the community. Okay, then G, the documents which shall accompany any application in terms of the Act, the requirements to be complied with by an applicant for the registration of a speciality, and then the conditions subject to which an SSP may practice such profession as the case may be in respect of a registered speciality. And we have specialities in social work. At the moment, the approved ones is adoption social work, forensic social work, probation social work, and now I can't remember the fourth one out of my head. But anyway, we've got 4 specialities at the moment that's approved. The other one, there's more that we're working on and that we are in a process to get them approved. The regulations were published for comments, and it's in the process of being hopefully finalized. So specialities is available specifically at this stage in social work. And then the acts which especially pertain to the profession of social work or to any other profession in respect of which a professional board has been established, and the conditions subject to which any person registered in terms of this Act may practice his profession. Okay. Then Section 27 of the Act provides that the council may, after consultation with the professional board, concerned and with the approval of the Minister, make rules relating to the conduct of SSPs, the Code of Ethics, and acts or omissions of SSPs which shall constitute unprofessional or improper conduct. Now, at the moment, we have the two sets of documents or two sets of rules for social work, specifically social work and social auxiliary work. And we are also in the process of combining this into one document to avoid any misunderstanding. But it all relates to the Code of Ethics and the acts and omissions that may lead to unprofessional or improper conduct. Let me just check, Lucky, are you ready to maybe take over from this slide where it's now talking about the fees payable to SSPs?
Good morning, colleagues. Ida, yes, thank you very much for holding the fort while I've been struggling to connect. Technology has not been my friend this morning, but yes, you have been doing a stellar job so far with the presentation, and I hope I can match your standard that you have just laid as you started off the presentation.
It's fine. Fine, thank you.
Yes, I can continue from this slide and finish off the presentation. And colleagues, just to say, I will not be sharing the camera. But I'm hoping that we will all be able to zoom into the presentation and pick up as much as we can. So the regulations on fees payable by social service professionals. Now, this is the reason why we have, as council, thought that it has become imperative that we hold this webinars province by province to ensure that we meet with the registrants and we create awareness and educate them on these new amendments that have been signed into law, into Act on the 2023. The Minister of Social Development has then on that day, in terms of Section 28, 1, paragraph A of this Act, on the recommendation, and she has done this on the recommendation of council. She has made amendments. She has made amended regulations relating to the fees payable by social workers, child and youth care workers, social auxiliary workers, auxiliary child and youth care workers, student social workers, student auxiliary social workers, student child and youth care workers, and student auxiliary child and youth care workers as well. And these amendments were published in the government notice of that number and in the government gazette of that number as well. So it becomes important that moving forward for this presentation, we understand Regulation 1 and we zoom into those two keywords that we are going to be using for this presentation as well. We want to educate and make a clear understanding for our registrants to understand. In the context of this presentation, financial year means any year ending on the 31st of March every year. So the year ending on 31st of March, that is termed a financial year. And a reference number for this benefit means a unique identifier that is assigned to any financial transaction that will enable council to identify the person who is making a payment and allocate such payment against that person's name. So please note the reference number for student registration. So if you are a student and you are registering, obviously when you are a student, you will be registering for the very first time. So when that registration is done, for a reference number, you use 60 and then you use the last 5 digits. The first 5 digits of your ID number. 60 and the first 5 digits of your ID number. So that's where the reference number that you use when you make payment at the bank. Reference number for all other transactions, for example, your registration fees or payment of your annual fees, registration number, or if one applies for registration as a social worker, you use your student worker registration number as a reference number. Now, Regulation 2, paragraph A speaks about fees that are payable to council by social workers and by child and youth care workers at professional level. So we need to be very clear, especially speaking to the child and youth care workers, what the determination here or what the distinction here. So these fees that I'm going to be reading out are those fees that are payable, should be payable by a social worker and by a child and youth care worker who is functioning at professional level. The registration fee by applicants who obtained their qualification at a training institution in the Republic of South Africa is 262 for those social workers and those child and youth care workers at professional level. Additional levy in case of paragraph A1 for registration that is requested to be finalized within 3 working days will be 325. So if you require your registration to be fast-tracked and completed within 3 working days, then that is the amount that you will be required to pay, 325. Registration fees by applicants who obtained their qualifications at a training institution that is outside of the Republic, outside of South Africa, but in the SADC countries. That amount will be 1,934 that you will be required to pay. Registration fees by applicants who obtained their qualifications at a training institution outside of the Republic, outside of South Africa, but in foreign countries. So whether it's Europe or up in Africa, the amount that you will be required to pay will be 3,804 rand. So if you are re-registering, you are re-registering, the re-registration fee by a person whose registration has been suspended in terms of section 22(1) paragraph B of the Act will be 803 rand. So if for any reason your registration was suspended, whether it could have been for improper conduct, or unethical behavior, or whatever reason, and you want to re-register after your term has been, your suspension has been lifted or so on. So the fee that you will have to pay will be 803 rand. So if you are re-registering and your registration was cancelled for whatever reason, the registration fee that you will have to pay will also be 803 rand. The annual fees, subject to regulation 3, will be 500 rand. So the 500 rand will be the annual fee that you pay after you have registered now. Every year, if you are practicing as a social worker and a child and youth care worker at professional level, the fee that you will be required to pay from now on moving forward will be 500 rand. Next slide, please. Regulations 2, paragraph A continues. Now, these are the fees that are payable by social workers and child and youth care workers at professional level. We're still continuing with that group. The fee for registration and annual fees for the restoration of the name of a person whose name has been removed from the register in terms of section 20.3 of the Act will be 762. Now, this is now for all those social workers and child and youth care workers at professional level whose names was removed from the register, maybe because they did not pay their annual fees on time. So now they want to restore their names back onto the register. So the fee that they will have to pay there will be 762 for restoration. Registrar's fine for fees that are paid after 31 March. You need to note that these fees are not enforced by virtue of imposing a restoration fee. Examination fee for the purpose of an examination of a person who obtained qualification outside of the Republic in terms of section 17D 3. That amount will be 1,234 rand. An examination fee for the purpose of an examination of a person who obtained qualification inside of the Republic in terms of section 18A, that will be 1,340. And there are administrative fees that are additional to the fees that are prescribed by paragraph A.1, 2, 4, and 5, and 6 for the reassessment of applications that needs to be resubmitted due to insufficient information. So if for whatever reason you have submitted your application and there's been a back and forth between you and the office for insufficient information that you have submitted and you need to provide more information, there will be a fee that you will be charged for that up and down administration, which the fee will be 214 rand. Please note that you use your student registration number as a reference. Regulation B continues. Regulations 2, paragraph B is saying now this is now for registration for a speciality in terms of section 17C of the Act. Now you would have noted that either the previous presenter has mentioned some of the specialities that are available in social work, forensic, and the other two that she mentioned. So if you are functioning as a social worker and you are specializing and you want to register for speciality, this will be the fees that are payable. Assessment fee will be 900 rand. Registration fee 233 rand. Re-registration fee by a person whose registration of the speciality has been suspended. So maybe if your speciality has been suspended in terms of section 22(1), paragraph B of the Act, the fee that you will have to pay will be 803 rand. Re-registration, if your fee has been cancelled, will also be 803 rand. The annual fee that you will have to pay, subject to regulation 3, is when you are a social worker functioning, having a speciality, will be 500 rand that you will pay on an annual base. Fee, registration and annual fees for the restoration of the name of a person whose name has been removed from the register in terms of section 20.3 of the Act will continue to be 762 rand. The registrar's fine, again, not enforceable by virtue of imposing a registration fee. Examination fee for the speciality in terms of section 17C, 2A and B of the Act, 1,340. And also there, again, administrative fees that are prescribed if there has been insufficient information that you have submitted with your initial registration, and those administration fees will be 240. Now, when you do this registration, remember now when you are doing this, it means you have long been practicing as a social worker, or you have long been practicing as a child and youth care worker, so you have now a proper registration number, not a student registration number. So that every year when you do this annual payment, you will use your registration number as a reference number. Regulations 2C, fees that are payable by to the council by student social workers and student child and youth care workers. This means now these are people who have just enrolled into university, into college, or into service providers who are providing child and youth care and social work courses. Now these students, I'm talking about that group of people now. Registration fee must be paid before the 31st of March of the very first year that you are studying. And this fee will be 262 rand that is payable to council for you to be registered, for your name to be put onto the register. Re-registration fee by a person whose registration has been suspended in terms of section 22(1), paragraph B of the Act, is again 803 rand. So if you are a student and you have been suspended for whatever reason, your name was removed, and then you want to bring your name back onto the register, the amount will be 803 rand. Re-registration fee by a person whose registration has been cancelled in terms of section 22(1), paragraph C of the Act, is also 803 rand. Fees for the restoration of the name of a person whose name has been removed from the register in terms of section 20.3 of the Act, 262 rand. So if your name was removed from the register for non-payment. Administrative fees that are additional to the fees prescribed in all those paragraphs is again 214 if you have provided insufficient and information and there has been up and down between you and the office, that additional administrative fee that you'll be required to pay. Now you are a student social worker or you are a student child and youth care worker, so which means when you do this payment, this will be the very first payment that you make. You use 60 plus the first 5 digits of your ID number as a reference number that you make at the bank when you make payment. Next slide speaks about is regulations 2D. It is that group of colleagues, social auxiliary workers, and auxiliary child and youth care workers. Now, listen carefully because this is where the bulk of the child and youth care colleagues are. Registrations fee that are by applicants who obtained their qualifications at training institutions in the Republic of South Africa is 262 rand. So if you're a social auxiliary worker and you are an auxiliary child and youth care worker and you have obtained your qualifications within the borders of South Africa, in South Africa, the registration fee that you will have to pay there will be 262 rand. Additional levy in case of paragraph D1 for a registration which is requested to be finalized within 3 working days, 325 rand. That is the amount you will be required to pay if you want your registration to be sped up. Registration fee by applicants who obtained their qualifications at a training institution outside of the Republic in a SADC country will be 1,310. And those registration fees by applicants who obtained their qualifications at training institutions outside of the Republic and in Europe and overseas will be 2,495 rand. Registration fees by a person whose registration has been suspended in terms of Section 22(1) paragraph B of the Act still remains 803 rand if your registration has been suspended and you want to re-register. We continue with that group of colleagues. We are still looking at the social auxiliary workers and the auxiliary child and youth care workers. Registration fee by a person whose registration has been cancelled in terms of Section 22(1) paragraph B and C of the Act will be 803 rand. So if for whatever reason your registration has been cancelled and you want to put your name back onto the register, that will be the amount that you will be required to pay. Annual fees subject to regulations 3 will be 250. So please, you need to note this amount. All our auxiliary child and youth care workers and social auxiliary workers, this will be the annual fee that you will pay, not your registration fee. Registration fee is a fee that you pay when you register for the first time. The annual fee is the fee that you pay now every year after you have registered. You've been given now your practice number and so on. So the annual fee moving forward will be 250. Fees for the restoration of a name of a person whose name has been removed from the register in terms of Section 20.3 of the Act will be 512 rand. So for all those colleagues who have skipped the years and they have not paid their annual fees, and they continue to practice or they want to continue to practice, now their names have been removed from the register and they want to restore their names back onto the register, the amount that they will be required to pay will be 512 rand. The registrar's fine for fees paid after 31st of March, again, they are not enforced by virtue of imposing a restoration fee. Now, there are examination fees again on this category of colleagues again here. For the purpose of an examination of a person who obtained a qualification outside of the Republic, that fee will be 1,340. And the examination fee for those persons who obtained their qualification inside South Africa will be 1,340 as well. Now, again, also for this group, there's also administration fees that are prescribed in terms of all those paragraphs. If you have submitted your registration and there has been insufficient and there has been back and forth between you and the office, the amount you will be required to pay still remains 214. Now, regulations 2F speaks to continued professional development, CPD. These are the fees payable to the council for all those individuals or for all those organizations who want to become service providers to provide workshops or activities that have CPD points assigned or allocated to them. Now, fees for the approval of a CPD activity offered to practitioners at no cost to the practitioner is 150. So if, for example, you are an individual and you want to apply for a course that has CPD points, but for this course you are not going to charge, it's going to be free for everyone who's going to come and attend your course. So if you want to apply for that kind of CPD points to council, you will be required to pay 150 at council. So that council looks at your activity and they assign points to those to the activity according to whatever information is on your activity. And when the people come to attend your activity, they are not paying any fee to you. They attend for free, and then after they have attended that activity, you allocate the CPD points against each name of the person who has been who attended your activity, even if you are an individual or if you are an organization. And this especially goes for organizations, because the organizations will then want to empower or create opportunities for the employees, the social service professionals who are employed by that organization, so that they can attend these workshops and they can collect CPD points for themselves. Now, fees for the approval of a CPD activity offered to the practitioner at a specified registration fee or cost to the practitioner will be 800 Rand. So whether you are an individual or you are an organization and you want to charge the people who are coming to the course to attend the course for the CPD points. So if you are going to charge the people who are attending, then it means that you will have to pay 800 Rand at council to register that course of yours. Administrative fees for reassessment of an application in terms of paragraph 1 and 2 that needs to be resubmitted due to insufficient information is again 214. So this 214 will be the amount you pay for extra administrative costs. Regulations 2G now. These are all now the miscellaneous fees to be paid to council. So these are the extra services besides the registration fees that you are required to pay, or that council collects from registrants. These are the extra services that council also provides to us as social service professionals. Fees for a duplicate registration certificate. If you lost your certificate and you want another practice certificate, 275 will be the amount that you are required to pay. Fees for inspection of the register per occasion. Every time you want to inspect the register, 275 will be required, will be asked from you. Fees for the issuing of an extract from the register per page, you will be required to pay 562 Rand. Fees for certificate of status of good standing. So if for whatever reason your employer or whoever wants a certificate from council that you are in good standing with council, you will be required to pay 675 to request such a certificate. Additional levy in the case of any express services which is requested to be finalized within 3 working days. So if you want one of any fee that you are applying for, a service that you are applying for on the above list, and you want it to be done in an express way very fast, 325 will be the amount that you will be required to pay extra. Now, these are now all the fees. Regulation 8 speaks to the fees that are required. There are fees payable to council by social workers and child and youth care workers. There are fees that are payable to council for registering a speciality in terms of Section 17C of the Act. There are fees payable to council by student social workers and student child and youth care workers. There are fees payable to council by social auxiliary workers and auxiliary child and youth care workers. And there are fees payable to council by student social auxiliary workers and student auxiliary child and youth care workers. And all these fees shall be payable subject to the date that is highlighted there. All these fees must be paid, the annual fees now. All these annual, not the registration fees. The registration fees, you pay them on the date that you are doing the registration, and this can be any time of the year. But the annual fees that you are going to pay for every year now, all these annual fees are payable on or before the 1st of January of every year. Please note that the annual fees for 2024 and 2025, which means the next round of annual fees, is due by the 1st of January 2024 and not the 31st of March next year. And these fees must be paid according to this amount. For social workers and for child and youth care workers who are functioning at professional level, and for those social workers with specialities, the fees that you guys are supposed to pay is 500 Rand, the annual fees for next year. And for social auxiliary workers and auxiliary child and youth care workers, the amount that is payable is 250 Rands. And this amount must be paid on or before the 1st of January 2024. The date, 31 of March, is the end of a financial year, and it serves a different purpose altogether as far as regulations on fees is concerned. Please pay the annual fees on time so that we can use the period from the 2 of January up to the 31st of March to process payments and issue practice cards before the 1st of April. So this 3 months, council or the office, rather not council, the office uses this time to process all those registration, the annual fees, to process everything and be in a position to issue the practice cards on that date. First-time registration, when you are doing a first-time registration as a social worker, a social auxiliary worker, or a child and youth care worker, or an auxiliary child and youth care worker, or a person registering speciality, registration and annual fees is payable in full for the financial year concerned before your name is entered into the register. So you can complete the forms, submit everything online, but your name will only be put onto the register after your payment has been received. In the case of a person who applies for re-registration in terms of Section 22.4 of the Act, application for registration after expiry of suspension period, the registration fee and the annual fee is payable in full for the financial year concerned before such a name is entered back into the register. So in the case of a person financial year concerned before your name is re-entered into the register. In the case of a person whose name is restored in terms of Section 20.3, if your name has been removed from the register for non-payment of the Act to a register referred to in Section 19.1 of the Act, the restoration fee and the annual fee must be paid in full for the financial year concerned before such name is re-entered or restored to the register. Now, there is a condition here. Now, before I talk about this condition, I want to make it clear, especially this has been a common occurrence for our colleagues within the child and youth care profession. If, for example, you stopped paying your annual fees in 2020, and in 2021, you have been working as a child and youth care worker, you've been practicing, but you did not pay your annual fees. And in 2022, again, you continue not paying, and for whatever reason, in 2023, you go back to council and you want to restore your name. At that point, you will find your name has been removed from the register for non-payment. So if you want your name to be placed back into the register, it means there is a restoration fee that you need to pay. We have spoken about the restoration fee already in the previous slides. There is that amount of restoration fee, and there is the annual fee that you must pay for 2023. Now, if you had the conditions that highlighted in red, means that if you have practiced in 2021 and you have practiced in 2022, it means that you also have to pay for those annual fees for those years that you have practiced but you have not been paying. So full payment must be received by the registrar's office, by the registration division, in full for 2023, which means that your restoration fee, your annual fee for that year, and the two annual fees for the 2 years, or whatever amount of years that you have been working that you were not paying for those years, that amount must be paid in full before your name can be restored back onto the register. And this amount must be payable for the financial years following the publication of these regulations and shall apply to all persons irrespective of the date of publications. And the fees that we have referred to in all our slides, these fees referred to in these regulations include value-added tax. So there is no additional tax that is paid on top of this. The amounts are fixed as that because they include tax already. Regulations 3 of the SSP Act provides for exemptions from paying applicable annual fees. Now, these exemptions go as forward. Paragraph 1A speaks about any persons who attains the age of 65 years on the 1st of January, who is not full-time employed or who continues to be full-time employed, provided that such application reaches council annually on or before the 30th of November. So if you know that you are going to be turning 65 next year, our colleagues, those colleagues who are still practicing, they can apply for exemption, but their application must reach the office before the 30th of November of this year, or the 30th of November of each year before you turn 65. Paragraph B speaks to a person who does not practice his or her profession because of ill health, or a person who has been unemployed for a period of 3 consecutive months or a longer period, subject to the submission of the following with his or her application. Now, on this paragraph, point 1 speaks to that person who is not practicing because they are ill. So there is exemption for that kind of person. So paragraph 2 speaks to a person who is unemployed for 3 or more consecutive months. So for that kind of colleague as well, they can also provide for, apply for exemption, provided that they can give a written proof that he or she is really unemployed for a period of 3 months or more longer. And there must also be an affidavit completed at the SACSSP office, police station on a prescribed form that confirms that he or she is not employed nor has any form of income. Now, this person contemplated in subparagraph 1 and 2 shall reapply annually for the renewal of the exemption status. Now, the person in that paragraph A who is turning 65 years, that person does not need to reapply every year to remind the office that they are still 65. They only do it once, and then the office will know that from here on you are exempted from annual fees. But if you apply for exemption because you are not working, your status can change. You can find employment. Or if you apply because you are ill, your status can change. You can recover and go back to work. So which means that you need to inform the office every year if your status has changed or if your status remains the same. A person referred to in paragraph B must be registered with council, and his or her application should reach council annually on or before the 30th of November. So you need to inform council every year before that date. Any person other than a person mentioned in paragraph A, so which means that the person who is ill health, who has ill health, or the person who is unemployed for 3 months or longer, those two people, they must before coming back, let me see, before coming back to practice again, they must advise the office of the registrar of their intention to come back and practice again, so that their status can be changed from exemption, so that they pay again the full amount again. So which means they are exempt. If you apply for exemption, it means you cannot continue practicing for that period while you are not paying and you are on exemption. Right. So any person other than a person mentioned in paragraph A, which means who turns 65, and B, not practicing because of ill health and unemployment, who in the course of financial year ceases to practice the profession or on before of the 31st March of that financial year, and who applies in writing to council on or before the 30th of November for partial or exemption from payment of the annual fee shall apply only an amount of 50% that will be payable from that person. And any person who qualifies for an exemption in terms of paragraph B and C is not allowed to practice, like I said, the profession that he or she is registered for, and must, before re-entering the profession, inform counsel in writing of such intention, and shall apply within 30 days the annual fee for the financial year which they are going to start to work. And then the exemption will fall away. Next slide. Regulation 4 speaks about the repealing now of the 2021 regulation on fees that are payable by social service professionals. The regulation made and published in Government Gazette notice of that number, in Government Gazette of that number, was done on the 19th of November in 2021 is hereby repealed. So which means that old law has been changed. It has been changed by the amendments that were signed and published that came into effect on the 2nd of June 2023. Regulation 5, publishing a list of valid transaction type codes. Point 3 speaks about, or paragraph 3 speaks about, the council will publish a list of valid transaction type codes mentioned in sub-regulations 2 on its website, which may be revised from time to time according to the council's requirements. Paragraph 4 speaks about payments that cannot be correctly allocated because of failure to comply with sub-regulations 2 will be regarded as not received in time if there is a deadline by which the payment is due. For example, for 2024 and 2025, which means for next year, the financial year, the annual fee not paid by the 1st of January 2024 will be regarded as not received in time. So colleagues, you might make your payment before the 1st of January, but use a wrong reference number. So if you use the wrong reference number, it means come the 1st of January, your payment will not be allocated onto your name, because it will be the registration of the finance office will not know whose payment is this, because a wrong registration number, reference number has been used. So then your name will be regarded as one of the names that has not paid their annual fees on time. So it becomes important to ensure that we use the correct reference number or registration number when we make payments, every time we make payments with council. Paragraph 5 says a payment contemplated in sub-regulation 4 shall be kept in a separate account until such time the person who made the payment is identified for a period not exceeding 3 years, whereafter the fee will be regarded as unallocated and recognized as other income in relation to the operations of council. So if you have used the wrong reference number, your payment is going to stay within council. This regulation is saying your payment will stay within in the bank account for a period not more than 3 years, and then after 3 years, if it's still not used, it will be regarded as unallocated, and it will be used now for the operations of council. Please note the methods of payment that we can use to pay our annual fees. Payment directly at any branch of Nedbank. Individuals, kindly ensure that you use your practice number as your reference number on your deposit slip. For the employers must provide the council or the office with a detailed list containing the names, registration numbers, and amounts to be paid of each person. Failure to comply with this requirement could lead to the wrong allocation of funds. Now, why do we have this on here as employers? Because remember, Department of Social Development, Department of Health, those two departments, according to the to the bargaining council resolution that was signed some time ago, required the employers to pay the registration fees, the annual fees, every year on behalf of the employees, on behalf of the social service professionals, on behalf of the child and youth care workers, and on behalf of the social workers and auxiliaries that they have employed. And now the understanding is that on October of each month, of each year, there will be fees deducted out from your salaries, and then these fees will be made payable by the employer on your behalf as a employee of social development or health. They will pay on your behalf to council. Now, when they make this payment, the request is that for the employers who are listening in, ensure that you provide council with a detailed list of all the names that you are paying for, the registration numbers for each person that you are paying for, and the amount that you are paying for each, because there are different practitioners on your list and different amounts are payable. Electronic and internet payments for individuals, kindly ensure that you use your practice number as your reference number if you're paying and making electronic payment as an individual. Payments that are made directly at the SACSSP office, employers must provide the council, like I said, with a detailed list of names and everything. Please note that when you when you find yourselves going to the office, they will not accept cash at the office. However, there is a speed point that you can swipe your card and make an electronic payment there. So if you are going to make payment at the Nedbank office, the Nedbank branch, there are the details that you can use to make your annual payments or to make your registration fees at council. There are SAGE payments that are paid through debit cards. So we can make SAGE payments by scanning the QR codes indicated on the invoice, and this can also be presented at any of our post offices, ShopRite, Checkers, House and Home, OK Furnitures, or our USAFE stores in our local communities. For students who are making their first payments, normally this responsibility falls within the ambit of the institution that you are studying with. So the institution should provide the council with a detailed list of the bulk payment containing full names of the students, the ID numbers, and the amounts that are paid in respect of each person. Failure to comply with this requirement could lead to wrong allocation of funds as well. Now, when we look at the consequences for failure to pay the annual fees on time, Section 20 of the Act speaks about removal from, rectification in, and restoration of registration of names. The council may order the registrar to remove the name of any person from the register concerned if the council is satisfied that such person has failed to pay any money which he or she owes to council within the 3 months, and 90 days after the date upon which it has become payable. Now, colleagues, if on the 1st of January you have not paid your annual fees to council, you have 90 days according to this act, according to these regulations. You have 90 days in which you can still make payment. So that 90 days is going to start on the 2nd of January 2024, or the 2nd of January every year. And the 90 days will expire a year around the 1st or the 2nd of April. So if by that time you still have not paid your annual fees, then your name will be removed from the register. The name of a person who fails to pay money owed to council, the annual fees by the 1st of January may be removed from the register after 90 days, counting from the 2nd of January. This removal is subject to council's order or resolution. Resolution 4.2 of the regulations regarding the registration of social workers, the certificate of registration is deemed to have been withdrawn from the date the name of the holder thereof was removed from the register. Section 20.1, paragraph A of the Act is talking about, it provides that notice of the removal of a person's name from the register by virtue of the provisions of any of the paragraphs of subsection 1 shall be given by the registrar to that person concerned by a registered letter sent through the post to his or address registered in the register's consent. So which means you will be informed by a letter that your name is removed from the register. Section 16 of the Act speaks about offences and penalties. Any person who contravenes any provision of Section 15(1) shall be guilty of an offence and on conviction shall be liable to a fine or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 6 months. So we can see now it becomes a criminal offence not to pay your fees because this is law. Rules relating to the acts or omissions of a social worker or a social auxiliary worker or a student social auxiliary worker which shall constitute unprofessional or improper conduct. And this will be behavior detrimental to the profession. Rule 3 of the act or omissions of a social worker which shall be deemed to be detrimental to the profession and constitute unprofessional or improper conduct. The employment of any person as a social worker, a student social worker, or a auxiliary social auxiliary worker, knowing that such person has not been registered in terms of the Act, constitute unprofessional and improper conduct and shall be seen as detrimental to the profession. Rules relating to the acts or omission of a child and youth care worker at a professional and auxiliary level, which shall constitute unprofessional or improper conduct, and it's deemed as behavior detrimental to the profession. The acts or Rule 4 speaks about the acts or omission of a child and youth care worker, which shall be detrimental to the profession and constitute unprofessional or improper conduct. Here again, employing a person as a child and youth care worker or a student child and youth care worker, knowing that such a person is not registered in terms of the Act, is seen as improper conduct and unprofessional as well, and is detrimental to the profession. Rule 7, employing a person who is not registered in terms of the Act to perform child and youth care work. Next slide, please. Section 20.1, paragraph D speaks about removal. This is now recourse for a person whose name was removed from the register. Section 20.3 provides that if council is satisfied that the reason why any person's name had ceased to exist and that he satisfies or she satisfies the requirement for his registration in terms of this Act, the council may, on application made in the prescribed manner by such person, after payment of the prescribed fees, order that the name of this person be restored to the registrar from which it was removed. So if you provide council with enough sufficient reason why your name must be put back onto the register, and after you have made the necessary payments and you have used the correct prescribed forms to apply and for re-registration or restoration, council will look at your application and or your request, and if they are satisfied, they will put your name back onto the register which it was removed from. Now, there will be also instances, there can be instances as well where council will see that your name, your restoration or your request will be denied, that this person will not be, we cannot put the name back of this person onto the register for this and that reason. So if there is refusal from council, a recourse that you can take according to Section 25 is that you can appeal against the refusal, penalty, or removal from the register. So there is appeal that you can lodge. Roles and responsibilities of social service professionals and employers of social service professionals. So according to these regulations, we have responsibilities as SSPs, and the employers, our employers as well, also have their roles and responsibilities as well. Now, for us as social service professionals, what is our roles and responsibilities? Simply that we must comply with the Act. We must comply with the rules and regulations of this Act. Now, for employers of social service, their roles and responsibilities are to implement the Act, to implement the rules and regulations, to take necessarily steps in terms of the Labor Relations Act against SSPs who refuse or who fail to comply with the Act, rules and regulations, and they must report the names of these persons to council. Thank you very much, colleagues. This is the end of the presentations. And according to our program. I think this will be now the time when we go for question and answers. Thank you very much. Over to you, Program Director.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. I think the presentation was clear, and now we'll go to questions and answers. The people who are in the meeting can raise their hands or type the meeting on the chat bar. And thank you, and over to you, Miss Miss Pariachi will be the one who will be doing the answering of the questions. Over to you, Miss P.
Thank you, members, and thank you for a well-presented presentation, Mr. Jacobs. I'm sure our attendees will be able to comment on their concerns, and please raise your hand, unmute yourself, raise your hand, and voice your opinion. We will take down your questions. If you're unable to want to comment, you can use the chat bar and write in your concerns. Kindly put your email address and your relevant information so we then can communicate with you. Thank you. Please go ahead. We see the first person, Mr. Pina. Mr. Pina, your hand is raised. You're most welcome to go ahead with your question. Can you hear us, Mr. Pina? Mr. Pina, are you still there? Would you like to raise your concern? The hand is gone. Anybody else? Okay, we have a message in the chat box from Miss, I don't know if it's Miss or Mr. Clinton. I just want to clarify, we only need to apply for a status report if necessary or asked for. There is no need for a social worker in the private practice to apply for it every year. Okay, ma'am. With this request is to request for a status report. When BH, if you are registered with BHF, the Board for Health Founders, if they request a yearly update for the status report from council, then yes, you will have to give a renewable as per your registration, as per your current registration. So council may not obligate to that, but when BHF requests for it on a private practice level, then when they request for a renewable status report, then you would request for the status report from council, pay the fee. It will be in concurrent as well with your annual fees that's up to date. I hope that question is answered to you, ma'am. Okay, Mr. Lucky, Mziletti, I see you're a child and youth care worker. You've given us your number. What is your inquiry, or are you just updating your information for the recognition of attendance today? That's the two messages on the chat bar. Anybody else with any concerns? Please raise your hand and raise your concern. It seems very quiet. Okay, I see another hand. Mr. Pulani Molo, you're welcome to go ahead with your question.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you for the presentation that was done for us. It was very informative. I just want to understand something from the malicious fees for the payment. Ne? They said under Roman figure regulation 2G, Roman figure number 2, they said fees for inspection of the register per occasion is 275. The inspection of the register, maybe I would like to be empowered in this. They are referring to what? Thank you.
Sorry, ma'am, can you kindly repeat your question?
Thank you. My question is that under the regulation 2G, Roman figure 2, they said fee for inspection of the register per occasion is 275. Can you empower me, or what are they referring to when they're referring to this? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, the fee for inspection to the register is your verification of your registration. It's if you don't have any proof of registration and you are registered. So for instance, I'm going to use the example, you're requesting maybe for a duplicate registration certificate. Right? If you were registered and you did not receive a certificate at all, you have a number, you've been practicing, we then validate it on our database, and then you can apply for the reissue of a certificate, which would show that you would give an affidavit to the reasons why you did not receive a certificate or you don't have any proof of the registration with our register. So that's where you would pay the 275. If we need to verify any information due to the POPI Act, we do not give it to anybody else. We only give it to the registrant, which is registered on our database. Then you can request for that. It's a verification of your registration on our database. You pay 275 for that as well. Is that clear, ma'am? Do you understand?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, it's clear.
Thank you. Anybody else with any other questions? Colleagues, please ask your questions whilst we're on this platform. It will assist us as well with the concerns that you have, and it will even give us a direction of, with the services that we render so that we can improve wherever need be. No one else. Okay, I see. Oh, Mr. Jones, is it Miss or Mrs. Josie Pinar? Please unmute yourself and you can pose your question, ma'am. Ms. Josie Pinar, unmute yourself and you can pose your question, ma'am.
Otherwise, she can maybe just write in the chat box because we don't hear her question.
Thank you, Ms. Tradum. Thank you, Ms. Josie Pinar. If you're having a challenge, please write your concern in our chat box. We'll respond to you as well. Ms. Josie Pinar, please go to your mic, unmute yourself, and then you can comment. Okay, I see.
She
you wrote in
does.
the chat.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Please give us an update on the 60 CYC students for DUT. Kindly give us information. When was the list sent to us? And if it is the online registration, also please make mention of it. If it was any time from June 2022 to date, then we can we'll inquire and then give you a response on that matter. Okay, Ms. Josie, I'm going to do inquiries. Kindly give us your email address where we'll respond to you. I'm just going to confirm with our administration section at registrations and we'll give you feedback. Please send your email address to us so that we can communicate with you. Thank you, ma'am.
Program Director, can I try and assist here?
Okay, sir, you may.
Thanks. I
Thank
think
you.
the inquiry by Mr. Pinar is that he wants to some update on. There was communication that went out earlier on from communication. I think sometime towards the end of the year last year, that informed the child and youth care work profession that there's been contact with DUT and HWCTA regarding the possible recruitment of 60 child and youth care workers, some for a study towards degree with DUT, you know, and so forth. So I think Mr. Pinar wants to understand because since there's been that kind of communication that went out, there has never been an update with regards to how far the process was with regards to that. So the child and youth care workers have been waiting for that communication to come out where they need to show their interest, those who are interested in the program, you know, to study towards a degree with DUT with the help of HWCTA. So maybe just to say that from my side, also speaking on behalf of the Professional Board for Child and Youth Care, I will not be able to commit to a comment right now. Maybe just to say that the process is still unfolding, and there are still processes that needs to be ticked off the list before we can actually go back to the field and communicate with them with regards to the readiness of the program. So maybe just for me is to appeal for the child and youth care workers for a little bit of patience with regards to this process. We understand that the development opportunities within the child and youth care field are limited and far and wide apart. So, but we will just request for a little bit of patience with regards to this process. We are also working hard to ensure that it actually gets off the ground. Thanks, Program Director.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs, for that information. We definitely will look into it and get feedback from the office, and will respond to Mr. Josie Pinar. Thank you, Mr. Jacobs.
Amohelang, can you increase your volume so that you can hear us properly? Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, colleagues and attendees. If there's no more questions, it will be that we're coming to the end of the program. I will hand over to the program director to continue from here. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the presentation went well. We are on item number 7. Okay, there's another question in the chat, but just hold on.
Okay, thank you for the question in the text bar. We'd like to know if there was any changes regarding email addresses or cell phone numbers that was not updated. Kindly forward your details to us, then we will do a follow-up why monthly communications were not received to your office, that you have not received. Then we can update information, and then I'm sure communications will follow to you in due course as well. We have received your email address, Mr. Pinar, so we'll update the information with this, but if there's any other changes like your cell number and any other forwarding email addresses, if you've got more than one, we can then update it and have a way to communicate with you and your offices. Thank you. We're still going to be open just to give last minute questions before we go to the closing of this program. So kindly, if there's anybody else would like to raise any other questions, you're welcome to still write it in the chat bar with your contact email. We will respond to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parayachi. We are on item number 7, where we will do the resolution and the way forward. I think the presentation went well, and everyone have got the information. And from the way forward now is to make sure that the annual fees are paid before the 1st of January. And we must remember that it's no longer the 31st. We must pay before so that the receipts can be sent to the clients, and yeah, so that everyone can get their receipts or practice cards on time. Thank you. Item number 8 is a vote of thanks. I would like to welcome again Ms. Morage, the Deputy Chairperson of the 5th Board of Professional Board of Social Workers. Over to you, Ms. Morage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Program Director, for really steering this ship very well. I would also like to extend sincere gratitude to the social services professionals who attended this webinar. I hope you have actually gained knowledge, and thank you so much for the questions that you asked as well. The managers present here today, thank you so much for your support, and also the employers. To the presenters, Chairperson of the Professional Board of Social Work, thank you so much, Ms. Redom, for standing in while we were having technical challenges. And to our main presenter for the day, Mr. Jacob, thank you so much for the presentation as well. You do it so effortlessly. I would always say, presenting the regulations and the act, it's not an easy task, but you did it so effortlessly. So to both presenters, thank you so much. I would be doing injustice if I don't thank the organizers in the office, those who are working behind the scenes, and those who are directly with us here. IT, communication, support staff, your hard work is highly commended. Program director, and also Ms. Mbuso, thank you so much. This is just an easy task, and colleagues, I know we are professionals. In conclusion, we are professionals, and we are professional for a reason. We have moral values, and we will continue to do the right thing. Thank you so much for attending and your participation. And I would pause here and hand back to the program director. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morage. We have come to the end of the presentation. We'd like to thank all the Northern Cape participants who were in the meeting, and the board members and the heads of department and the management. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Bye.
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 All members have left. We just with the committee members.
Okay. Hi, Ms. Mbuzo, you can take over here. Yes, we are left with Ms. Stradom, Jacqueline, and Professional Board of Conduct. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues, and also the board members. Usually after each and every webinar, we'll reflect on what transpired during the webinar. I will first give to our professional board members to give a reflection, starting with the chairperson.
Thank you, Lungi. Yeah, this was a quick one.
Very
In
quick.
comparison with other days that I was part of it. But yeah, I think there were also not many questions. Hopefully it was because all the questions were answered. But I think it went well, and yeah, that's all from me. And I would just like to know an indication of what is the program for tomorrow, where I'm involved, so that I can just be prepared. But
Yes.
luckily, I was part of the previous session, so it was easy for me to step in, and that's no problem. I will do that anytime. Thank you. And thank you for the office to also manage all of this. I want to say on your own. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, indeed, it ended almost in an hour, 10 minutes earlier. But I think also, yes, it is due to the number of people who attended. And I will share the program as soon as the acting has shared the program with us. But he did mention that also tomorrow, Mr. Nzama from the Professional Board for Social Work will be presenting. So I'm not sure whether you'll be co-presenting with him or what, but I will share the program as soon as he sends it to us. Colleagues, do you also have some reflections?
No comments, Ms. Mbuzo.
Mr. IT? Professional conduct? Okay, this brings us to the end of our briefing. We'll share the program to everyone. I'm hoping before close of business today. Have a lovely day forward, colleagues. And thank you once again, Ms. Stradom, for stepping in while we're still trying to connect Mr. Jacobs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Mbuzo. Goodbye.
Thank you.
all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.